everybody, and welcome back to this series, Excellence in Greenstones. So right now I'm going to make the focus shift towards specimen greenstones from jewelry grade greenstones, and I'm going to talk about sort of what my qualifications are for making a greenstone into a specimen or keeping it as a piece of jewelry. So I'm going to show you some examples and show you some decisions that I made on some pieces, and right, wrong, or otherwise, sort of where my stance is now on specimens versus cabochon grade greenstones, and when to make that that leap to keeping a stone as a specimen for the significance of the mineral and the preservation of the mineral. So right now you're kind of like, wait, aren't all greenstones gemstones? Shouldn't we make them all into cabochons and wear them around our neck and use them as jewelry? Depends on who you ask. As of lately, the greenstone resource has been getting smaller and smaller. There's less and less greenstones available for collecting. There's less and less places to collect because mines keep getting closed down for different ownerships and things like that happen. And so what we're experiencing now is, through the pandemic and that era, there was a lot of people collecting stones and polishing stones, and there was just a flood of greenstones on the market. Now what we're seeing is the market tightening up a lot. We're seeing less greenstones available because less are being found, and the quality of the greenstones that are available is going down significantly. And so this leap from all greenstones are gemstones to maybe we should preserve some of these as specimens, and just keep the mineral whole for what it is and its historical significance and its significance to the mineral community. So once the decision was made to take a greenstone and start cutting it into a cabochon and rounding it and start shaping it for jewelry purposes, you lose that one-time shot as keeping it as a specimen. And for a lot of reasons that we're finding out now, with the resource going away and less stones being available to find and to harvest, we're finding that being more and more important to make that determination on whether a greenstone's worth keeping whole, polishing it just in the natural free-form shape that it is and keeping it preserved, versus cutting it into a cabochon and marketing it as jewelry. So I've got some samples here that I'd like to show you and discuss with you and sort of break the ice in this next part of the series, Excellence in Greenstones, that we're going to start to discover specimens versus cabochon grade greenstones. So here's just a brief overview of some of the greenstones that I'm going to discuss today, and this is just to give you an idea of kind of what I'm looking at. Just getting started here, I've got this greenstone here. It's quite large. It almost fits across 3 of my fingers, and it's going to be about a 2-inch stone. I can measure it a second. Let's see, this is millimeters. Where at? See if I can get it in the camera here. So that's where that's at. It's about 40 millimeters. So we're looking at about 1.75 inches. So quite a stone. And so this one, if you were to make it into jewelry, you're just not looking at a stone that's gonna, it's not gonna outweigh the significance it is on its own as a specimen. So this is a perfect example of a stone that I would never cut up into jewelry. For one, you've got this crack across it, which isn't going to lend well for jewelry anyway, but it just has that great pattern across it. And if you were to chop this up into smaller stones, you're just going to end up with maybe this right here for a stone, and then if you flip it over, maybe right here. But it's just going to be all pieced up and just really not worth getting rid of this amazing piece for a couple of cabs. So this is one of those examples where definitely just going to keep it as a specimen, and that's the way it's going to stay. This is a piece that was made somewhat like a cabochon in that it was cut to be set, but I never set it just because it's quite large. And if you look at the finish on it's about as good as it's going to get for this quality of stone. But having it just be a bigger piece, I think it just lends well better to be a specimen. This one's at roughly 27, so it's over an inch across, and it displays well as a greenstone specimen. And the significance of making a pendant out of this or something just wouldn't outweigh the value it is the way it is as a specimen. So if I were to weigh the first piece that I just showed you, let me zoom out a little bit here. So we're on grams, and this piece right here is 14, almost 15 grams. So quite a large stone, quite a piece. And this piece right here, looking at 9.15 grams. So again, quite a significant piece. Most of the pieces that I would set for jewelry, we'll just take this one for example. This is a fine piece. I would call this jewelry grade greenstone. And if I weigh this, we're at 1.75. So, this is more of a typical size, 1 to 2 grams, that I would set for jewelry. Let's see. I've got another piece here. This is kind of towards the larger end of a greenstone I would set for, say, like a pendant, unless I had a special request. This one is 3.5 grams. So just gives you an idea of the size range that I'm talking. So these are more than 2 or 3 times the size of a piece I'd set for jewelry. Here we go again. This is another piece that the turtleback pattern across it just isn't quite. It's just not quite significant enough to put in a pendant or make any kind of jewelry out of it. But it is still very significant as a piece just for display purposes, and it's really quite something. So if I were to weigh this piece, see, we're at 8.5 grams. So that gives you an idea of this one. Probably even if it did turn out really good and it had amazing pattern across it, I'd still probably keep it as a specimen, just because of the size. And just finding that a lot of times the value of these stones, when they get this large and they have that perfect pattern across them, they're unreplaceable. Here's another example. This one, really fantastic. This has that real gemmy, it's got that real gemmy look to it. It's got those big eyes that I like quite a bit in a greenstone. And you can see the chantoyancy move across the stone as I kind of move it in the light. And so this one just has a real cool look to it. And this one I'm not going to set either. I'm just keeping this one because it's a significant greenstone just for what it is. And I just don't think that I could get the value out of it setting it in a piece of jewelry and then trying to get what it's worth out of it. It's just worth more to me to keep. So this one, if I weigh it, definitely a higher quality than these 3. This one's 10.5 grams, but yet it has those real chantoyant eyes on it, and it is darker. Overall it's a darker stone, but it does catch the light pretty well in the corners of these cells. So I like it quite a bit. So here's a piece that I liked well enough to put into 14 karat gold. I really just liked the greenstone altogether, and this piece really turned out pretty well. Again, but this is more in that smaller size. This is that 1.5 gram size greenstone, looking at about maybe a 6 karat greenstone. So not significantly large, but a really great pattern across it. And this is the kind of greenstone that people are expecting to see in jewelry. And if you look at the size comparison of this stone versus that one, you know, they're not even in the same conversation hardly as far as size goes. So we've got that one. This one probably would be in the larger size I would use for jewelry as well. This one, if I get a measurement on it, let's do the longest measurement. So this one could probably make that 20 across. So, you know, almost 7/8 of an inch. Nice greenstone, really, really great pattern. And this represents the stone very well for, you know, its size, and very unique shape on it as well. I really like the shape. It's got a nice pattern going to the edge of the metal, and overall it's a great piece. But then again, if you look at the size comparison between these two, I mean, they're not even close. So I'm just trying to differentiate the difference between a gem greenstone, one I would use for jewelry, and then one I'd use for just a specimen, because some of these stones are just, they're a lot bigger than you need for jewelry. Here's another little piece. It's maybe not so little. Great pattern on it. It's a little bit darker, but the consistency of the lines on it and the green-black pattern really makes it a nice piece, especially when you see that pattern come all the way across the stone. It's got very few spots on it, like right here is one of those basalty spots. It's got very few spots on it like that. This one, I'm not going to set this one. This one just is a very, very nice example of a greenstone. It's lighter than these 4 over here. Like this one is 5 grams, and it looks like it's just under an inch if I measure the longest part of it. So actually it's just over an inch, 25.7. So yeah, this is probably not going to go in jewelry. This one's probably right on the edge of just a little bit too large for me to set. I'd rather keep it as a specimen and see where that goes. One more piece that's very noteworthy to bring to your attention here is this piece. This is just a real fun piece. It had to be Dremel polished right there in the corner because it's got that divot, and so this one just took a lot more time to work on to make great. And you can kind of see that it's got the 2 layers. It's sort of semi-hollow in part of it, at least that we can see right here. But just an awesome piece, really, altogether. This one will never make it to jewelry. I couldn't see this piece being used as jewelry. It's just too significant. Again, if I measure across this one in millimeters, so we're right at 34 millimeters, so like an inch and 3/8 crossed. Quite a piece. Really, really spectacular greenstone. This is one I wouldn't put in jewelry. Let's get a quick weight on that one, just to get an idea of the weight and size. So this one's 13.08. So significant greenstone, nice piece, and I don't think I'd ever put this in jewelry. One piece that I did actually put in jewelry that was a larger greenstone, I've never sold or never gotten rid of. I've just kept it because it just was pretty significant in my opinion. It's got that copper inclusion up towards the top there, and overall just the piece looks really great. So this piece, give you an idea of how tall it is here. So this is going to be 32 millimeters, so like about an inch and a quarter. So it's a taller piece. It's a larger piece, and overall it turned out really great. Just haven't sold it. Just kept it around. It's just hard to justify selling a larger piece like this for what you can get, and I think some of these larger greenstones just deserve to be kept. Well, thanks for joining me today, looking at some of these specimen greenstones and comparing them to some of the greenstones I'd use for jewelry and the different sizes, and maybe that'll help you make up your mind on some of the cabochons you're working on. and help you to decide, hey, should I keep this as a specimen? Should I make a cabochon out of it? One of the key differences for me when I'm making the decision on whether to set it in jewelry or whether to make a specimen out of it is how much I like it. I mean, a lot of these things we do, you know, for our own enjoyment and for our own collection, and so sometimes you just have to make the decision that's best for you, and sometimes it's just better to sell the piece and see what you can do with you know, with silver or gold, and just making that just phenomenal piece that you've been wanting to make. So don't want to discourage anyone in any way from making large pieces. It's just from my experience, the larger pieces don't tend to fetch the price that they need or that they deserve. And later on I'll talk about pricing and see if I can help you out with pricing on greenstones a little bit more. But for now, I just wanted to point out some obvious things that I do with greenstones and how I make the determination on specimens versus cabochons and jewelry. If you like the video, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Your presence here is very welcome. Be sure to bring you some more of this amazing greenstone content, and do my best to help you as much as I can along the way. So until next time, be well and take care.